Welcome to another Thursday, ladies and gents of all ages and all kinds. Doesn't matter your height, your weight, your ethnicity, your gender. All of that doesn't matter here. We're all equally special in the eyes of the All-Fathers, who will eventually drop the hammer of dawn on us all and turn us all to ash. And that'll be the second coming of the Locusts and the UIR reinsurgency, which will create the Pendulum Emergence Day itself. Yeah, honestly, I didn't know how to open this, so I figured I'd just make something completely out there. Just throw it out to the wind and see what would happen. And hey, it turned out it worked in the end. So, welcome to another Thursday, as always. Gear Talk, Cody Booker here. Call me Cab, call me whatever you want. Today, actually, is a little bit more of an odder video I have. By odder, I pretty much mean... It's not normally talking about gears. It's still about gears, don't get me wrong. But it's more about the structuring of the story, you could say, or how the story is going to be built up and placed from here on out. So it's going to be a little less about gears. It's still going to very heavily involve it, of course, but it's going to be more about how the story is built and how a trilogy is set up. Because as far as we know right now, we have Gears 4, that's obvious. Gears 5 will probably be towards the end of the year. And I think we can all safely assume, with how the Coalition is currently pushing out, like, tactics, the books, the novel, whenever we get that Gears of War movie, I'll wait for that. I think it's safe to assume there's a good chance we're going to get a Gear 6, unless the sales are so horrible, it literally becomes... Unless no one buys any Gears games from here on out, I think we're probably going to get a 6. So I wanted to sit down with this and talk about how a trilogy is set up, or more Gears based, how the Gears of War trilogies have been set up. And I'll probably pull other examples from other stories to show the normal progression of how this works. Because normally in not only games, but stories, you have a 3-act structure. And that's kind of what I'm going to be basing this off of, because it works very well for a trilogy, because it's more spread out. And you could say this game, and this game all fall into the separate acts. So let's get started and take a look first at the original series and see what we come up with from there. So before we jump into the main trilogy, let's talk about how normally a 3-act structure works. And normally this works well with a trilogy, or it can work with a story. This is normally how things go. Normally how the setting of everything is. Now, there are exceptions. For instance, with Dragon Age. With Dragon Age, that does have a 3-act system in it, but for the first game, Origins, the separate games have their own settings, but it's become more of a saga now instead of an actual trilogy. A trilogy, normally by the 3rd act or the 3rd game, normally things will wind up, or it'll finish up. If there's going to be anything that comes after that, after a main trilogy, normally there's some form of cliffhanger at the end, but we'll get into that. Starting off, we'll talk about Gears 1 with the first act, which would be the setup. Now, what the setup normally is that we're introduced and everything's set up to us. For instance, the first act, we are introduced to the characters. We are introduced to the world. We're introduced to pretty much how the world runs. We're introduced especially to the enemies. Now, when it comes to a game, this can go either way, because the setup can normally be for us, the viewer, or it could be for the characters that are in the story. Normally, it's for the person playing the game or viewing the story is how it goes, because the Locusts have already made themselves known, I believe, up to 14 years in the first Gears of War game. Everyone knows who the Locusts are. Everyone does. But us as the viewer or reader or player, this is the first time we're meeting them. We are set up to all of this. Everything is put in place for us so that this is our introduction, and we're being set up for the events that come. And by the events that come, what I mean is, by the end of the first game, or the first act, the reason it's called the setup is because we've been set up for the events that will follow. We understand that the light mass bomb was pretty much dropped. We understand that the Locusts are getting hit by it. We get all that. It's the fact that, and if you're playing the Ultimate Edition, I'll go off of that because it's more epic. Get it? Epic. So what it pretty much means is you're set up in a way that says this is not the ending. There is a lot more to come. Mira is sitting there watching, riding on, what's it called? I think that was the Hydra she was riding. And pretty much it's set up like the Locusts are not gone. They are still around. For instance, their leader is just watching right now. They know that there's still more to come. And that's kind of how it goes. The game itself, its setup is pretty much when Marcus gets out of prison. You're being set up from that act up until probably he takes command, is your setup to everything. You're being introduced to everything that's around you, and they allow you to meet Barrett and Cole, and that's always amazing. But pretty much that's just the generic setup for that. I'm not going to really go into the setups or the second or third acts into any of the games. I'm just going to stick to the trilogy, so let's continue on. So, the second act of any trilogy or story is normally considered the build-up. Now, you would wonder what's the difference between the setup and the build-up. The difference is the setup more focuses on the introduction. It focuses on setting up the story that we're having. The build-up, pretty much the second act is made, and the same for the first. It goes more in like, I can't remember what it's called, but the progression gets very high very quickly as you go. What it pretty much does for the build-up is it's setting up everything that's going to happen in the third act, where the climax is going to happen, where everything is going to go down. The second act is normally spent, you already have the world set up, so now you're getting introduced to not only the villains, but maybe like other things that are going on with the villains. You get more of a look into the villain's point of view on things. I'm not saying this is a villain story in the second part, it's not, but you get more of an insight into their stuff. The second game for Gears, you're in the Locust Tunnels, you're in the Hollows. That's their territory. You're learning more about them as you go. The build-up also brings in, if there are other characters or other factions or something like that that's coming in. Normally in the second part of something, you'll see secondary characters. No one main character, but normally secondary characters could die. This does happen in the introduction too, but that's normally for like the red shirt characters that are going to die no matter what. The second part though, you've evolved to some more characters that you somewhat know, they're going to die. And that's when you understand this isn't a joke anymore. The big stuff is coming. So, from the first part to the second part also, normally how it goes for that, it's just a steady, it goes into the next day or it'll go into the next week. Normally there's not a major time jump or anything. Normally it moves on. From 1 to 2, I believe that's about a month or two, and then it goes on to the second game. And, we have the story in the comics that bridge that gap, so I'm not really going to consider that like a major time. So the second act is pretty much, that's where it's going. It's leading up to that big climactic finish. So just the steady incline of it going up, and we're going to hit that major part in the climax, part 3. So the climax. This is where everything goes completely nuts, and everything can be thrown at you from the creator, author, anyone's perspective. They can do whatever they want. They can do it however they want. Everything is on the table. They can do it all. Normally this is where you see the major battles going on, major character deaths. And if there is going to be things that come on later on, that's normally when you get the cliffhanger. You'll get something that says like, you thought the story was done, there's still more to this world and more to talk about. Normally, if it's a trilogy that's going to get itself wrapped up and finished, you don't normally get that too often. It's very prevalent in games when they do that, because they do say like, we're done. Our trilogy is finished. It's good. We'll have like side games. For instance, Judgment doesn't continue after 3. End of 3 we do get cliffhangers, and we do get that in 2 also. But again, that's like their third act in the second game. Like for instance, when we learn Adam Phoenix is still alive, that's our cliffhanger at the end. In 3 though, we have a few cliffhangers. Nothing really major. We don't have anything like, oh my god, this is the next part. Get ready, guys. Pick up Gears 4. It's happening 2 years from now. We didn't really get that because we knew that the Epic was going to be done with, well, I think technically they had a hand in Judgment, but they were going to be done with 3. They were going to be done. We didn't really get that many cliffhangers. We got some things, I would say, like, I don't really know how to word it. We got some doors that were left open. I consider 3 its own third act from the trilogy. So in 3, for instance, we got the Aaron Griffin situation. There's still beef between those two. We never got an answer to that. I'm going to say this one because I personally want to. D. Carmine, we never figured out the 4th Carmine brother. That was still left in the air. Again, that's my own personal one I'll throw out there. We had some other things like that. We had... top of my head, I really can't think about it. The people at Anvil Gate, we didn't know what happened to them up until we got 4 and we saw that they made it out alive. But that's pretty much how the structures work. I know I didn't really leave it on the highest of notes for the third part, but that's kind of how it works for a 3-act structure, how a trilogy will work, because each game can be its own part of the structure. So let's go on and talk about what we currently have for the current Gears games that are out. Now, if we're going to assume that there's going to be a Gears 6, we have to take Gears 4 as our first part of the three act structure, and then take Gears 5. We don't know about it yet, but let's assume pretty much what this video is made is to assume what's going to happen in 5. So in the first one, Gears 4, we have the introduction. We have the Outsiders, the new world of Sarah 25 years later, the introduction of characters we haven't met. We have the new enemy, which is the Swarm. We get introduced to all. This is our introduction to the new world of Gears of War. This is where we get, we take our clean boots, we put them on, and we jump into the dirt for the first time. So that's what we get in the first game. We get our introduction, we get everything, we get the new, and this goes into the company too. We get our new little bit tweak controls. We get pretty much the pacing we're going to be getting from here on out. That's pretty much what we get. The only stuff that really diverges a bit is because of the fact that this follows another trilogy. We do get characters we've already met. Pretty much the introduction to them is, though, what they're doing 25 years later. That's kind of what we receive in that. And again, each game acts as their own structure system. So obviously the third, where we get like the major deaths, major things, yada, 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 and then we get the cliffhanger. Rain is dead. We have the final strike to go and get her. We have to fight the giant swarm beast, and we get the Locust pendant. That's our third act in Gears of War 4, not the first game. That's a while ago. Now, I'm not going to really jump into part 3, the climax, at all, because we don't know enough from just the first game to think how 6 is going to go. So let's just now go into hypothesizing by what I've stated with this system, how 5 will go. So 5 is going to have, it's going to build up the climactic battle. So the Swarm are going to be more powerful by the end of pretty much 5. Now, you could say, well, the Locusts were kind of weakened because of the whole flooding, and they weren't really on the best, plane of existence in general by 3. That's true, but the Locusts were an ongoing battle we knew about. The Swarm has just been introduced, and I don't really see a weakened Swarm being the big climactic final battle. I don't see that being the case. The Swarm are going to get more powerful because they're a new enemy, a new threat that is slowly building. The Locusts were already a powerful thing when we first met them. They just got weakened to the point where we could take them out. So the Swarm are going to get more powerful. Some side characters are definitely going to die. I could see Oscar dying. I could see, let's say somehow Jin died. I don't think Jin's going to die, though. I think she's going to make it to 6, and then maybe she'll die. Unfortunately, now Marcus is a side character by 5. 4, I wouldn't say he was, but 5, yeah. I could see Marcus dying. I could see some people from 25 years ago, like Barrett or Cole or Sam, they could possibly die. Those types of people will die. I don't think JD is going to die. I've heard the theory he'll be leading the Swarm, which he's not dead technically, and he'd make it into 3. Dell's probably going to be alive. That trailer, he's not going to get shot. He's fine. And then Kate is also going to be alive. She's the main character of the 5th game. She's going to be good. So side characters are going to start dropping. We're going to get the build-up. The Swarm are going to come into stronger power, possibly by the theory of JD leading them something. I don't really buy into. It's a 50-50 split on that one for me. We're going to get that. We're going to have pretty much everyone preparing for that final battle. I don't know how far in time it's going to jump from 5 to 6. By the look of how 4 is right now, I don't think there's a major jump, maybe by a year. Maybe a year. I'll say a year to be safe. But yeah, just because 5 isn't out, I can't really assume that much. But we can assume side characters are going to die. That's going to happen. The Swarm is going to become freakishly powerful, where it's like, this is a serious problem. And then, and I didn't really bring it up that heavily with the second game in Gears, when I was talking about the original stuff, but there's going to be a new enemy faction introduced. In 2, we got our first, we didn't get our first glimpses, but the first introduction, like the Lambent are a thing. They are definitely a thing we have to deal with. And 5 is going to be bolstering up that final battle with either allies or enemies. So someone is going to come, and someone's going to change the landscape of how the battle is going to be done. I made a video last week about it. You could say this is a continuation off that because I mentioned this was going to get done this week. But I don't know. Something's going to happen in 2. Someone's going to try making a power grab, and I don't know who. It could be anybody. It could be anything. It could be something we don't even know about. For all we know, Lambency could still be around and they're back. I highly doubt it, though. I think Lambency is gone. I think the Lambent are finished. The Swarm may still be alive in some way, but I think the Lambent are gone. So, yeah, I'm not going to say anything for 6 just because we don't know enough from 5 because we haven't played it yet to really assume what we're going to be getting next. And that's going to do it for this system, the structure pretty much. I was going to make this a lot shorter and just talk about the system and what we have in 4 and 5. But when I was writing out the script and the notes, I noticed that it wouldn't be a long video. And I don't really like getting into the 20-ish range. I know this one's not going to, but I don't really like those long videos because it really drags on a bit. But I think this one came out pretty well because there's information throughout the whole thing, not just me rambling on about some random topic. So you guys have a great one. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching this in general. The Gears videos have really been taking off as of late. The channel's been doing good. Viewership's been... we had a dip for a while because we had to take a break from some certain videos. But we've gotten back on that train. Things are starting to really rally back up for us. I'm really happy about that. We're going to be having some big news coming up in a few months. I'm just going to say it now. Just be prepared for, like, if there's a major update in a few months. It's definitely not anytime soon. But I wanted to make this for a bit what's going to be coming up because there's a certain thing that me and Sean are happy about we want to announce. But that's for a while away. You're not going to see that for a bit. Just thanks again, guys. Keep watching, following, liking, tweeting, subscribing, all that good stuff. It really helps us out every single time. You guys have a great one. Enjoy your Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, or next Thursday, whatever day you watch this. Have a good one, guys.